wholeness comes from the inside out.
When we're living congruently with our values, there's happiness because there is that sense of wholeness.
Wholeness is when the way of your being matches the truth of your being.
Brian McLaren is an author of many books. His latest, Do I Stay Christian?, touches on a common trend in wrestling with one's faith. He is a speaker, activist, and public theologian. A former college English professor and pastor, he is a passionate advocate for a new kind of Christianity, which is just, generous, and working with people of all faiths for the common good. His podcast, Learning How to See, is a must listen, especially if you or a loved one is struggling with faith. I caught him in town for a conference and a bucket list conversation. Join the library and you can watch this beautiful conversation. And please rate and review this podcast wherever you listen.
I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian background where Charles Darwin was a really bad guy. And we were not allowed to believe in evolution or anything like that. But when I was older, I was really interested in science and biology, and I became very interested in evolution.
Yeah.
And when my Sunday school teacher said, "Oh, you either believe in God or evolution," I thought, okay, I'm 14, 4 years, and I'm out of here.
Right.
Many years later, when I was doing a lot of research in psychology, I realized that one of the ways people are talking about the brain is to talk about the human brain as having three components. A reptilian brain, or fish brain, or bird brain, sometimes people say.
Yes.
Which in a sense is in evolutionary terms, is the oldest brain. In some ways, it's the part that operates fastest.
Right.
People think of it as the most primitive, but in another way, it's had a lot more time to be perfected, right?
Yes.
So we have this reptilian brain, we have a mammalian brain, and when you think what happened when mammals developed, well, the mother-child bond becomes important, and the herding bond becomes important, and so then you realize, it sort of makes sense that has to do with the emotional self.
Yes.
And then the primate brain develops, which in some ways has to do with, we often think of it having to do with rationality, which I think is one of its capacities.
Right.
Analysis, foresight, hindsight, all of those more intellectual capacities. Yeah. Well, what struck me is this. Here's been sort of my unfolding thing that I think matches up with what you're saying. So in a way, the only route for the human or primate brain and the mammal brain to the body is through that reptilian brain. And in a sense, the reptilian brain is what gives us connection to our body.
Yeah.
So here's my proposal. Again, for what it's worth.
I'm ready.
That if those three parts of our brain, layers of our brain, modules of our brain, they're not easy to manage. We're not very good at it. It causes us all kinds of trouble.
Right.
And maybe what we call spirituality is the way that we integrate those parts of us.
Wow.
So in that way, see, with what a lot of us grew up with, spiritual was good and physical was bad.
Right.
But in this way, no. Spiritual is the way we integrate the different parts of us. And we do it hopefully consciously and with moral ends in mind.
Right.
And that's all.
We invite you to thewholenessnetwork.com, where you'll find the Wholeness Library. Inside, you'll find tutorials, downloads, mini classes, and all sorts of streaming content for you on your wholeness journey.